All right, it has happened. The upset that makes for a great ICC tournament has come our way as England have slipped, if not on a banana skin, then certainly on a wet outfield. The showers have come down to deprive Josh Butler's side of 2 points that a lot of us thought should be in the bag for them. Ireland have won. Register that. Ireland have won in the T20 World Cup in the Super 12 stage. It's a big day for them. We all remember Ireland v Pakistan 2007, Ireland v England 2011. You can add Ireland v England 2022 now to those epic Irish days in cricketing history. We will hear from Niall O'Brien, Sam Billings, Anil Kumble on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricinfo T20 Timeout. Stephen Fleming will also join us in just a moment. I think Anil and Sam would excuse me if I first go to Niall to just sum up the emotion. It looks like the sun is out in the UK where Niall is, and he's thrilled it's not at Melbourne. Niall.
Oh, guys, what a wonderful way to... It makes getting up at 4:30 in the morning so worthwhile. A brilliant performance. So proud of those boys who went on the field today. Every single one of them. They've been working really hard over the last 6-7 months. Results haven't always been coming. They lost to India and South Africa, but they played well. Behind the scenes, you knew things were being put in place. For this moment to happen, it's no fluke. They play with good skill, good execution. They play with the Irish heart is what we expect, but they play with a high skill level. I'm just absolutely chuffed to bits. I'm so proud of every one of those guys. Big thumbs up to Andy Balbirnie. I thought his captaincy was superb. He batted beautifully in the first innings, and I thought his captaincy was great. He changed his bowling up when he needed. He got certain bowlers to certain batters. It was an almost flawless performance from Ireland. They were brilliant today.
We'll give Niall a moment or two to just gather his thoughts beyond the emotion, but he makes such good points in his opening statements too. It wasn't just the rain, Anil, that came down to rescue Ireland. They played the better cricket, you could say, for almost a good 80-90% of that second innings. Moeen Ali was taking them close to a DLS par, but it's safe to say that, it's not like rain has bailed Ireland out. They deserve to win this.
Oh yes, I think if you look at the way Andrew Balbirnie, Balbirnie sort of led from the front. I mean, he batted brilliantly to score those runs, and then even in the field, although a couple of catches, probably dropped catches, came in handy in the end when you look back, because David Malan and Brooke were struggling at the crease, and that's where I think England lost. They had an opportunity to get that score. The reason that they fielded first, I mean, you've heard Josh Butler talk about it at the toss, saying, there's some weather around, that's the reason we are chasing. Unfortunately, they didn't show that energy, but Ireland, hats off to Ireland. I think their bowlers bowled really well in the power play, picking up key wickets, and then Balbirnie led the game from the front.
I must go to Sam Billings now and ask him for what his first thoughts are here, because if that game would have gone to its logical conclusion, we'll never know how it would have panned out. And Moeen Ali was just beginning to turn it on. Liam Livingstone played 2 balls. Gosh, what we would have given for a bit more of Liam Livingstone in this game, Sam. But how do you sum up what you saw in that chase from England?
Yeah, initially we saw the ball swing for a long period of time, didn't we? Even in, I think, the 8th or 9th over, McCarthy kept on swinging it. So, they used the ball far better than the English bowlers did initially, and very well deserved win for Ireland, unfortunately. And with the rain, even if it was another couple of overs with Livingston and Moeen started going, especially against the leg spin, it could have been the difference of another couple of balls and England would have been in the positive situation, but it wasn't to be. And full credit to Ireland. It'll be tough to take in from an English point of view, and it brings the group and the tournament a lot closer together now. So that Friday game against Australia at the MCG, how massive is that now?
Absolutely. Throws the group wide open. Australia wouldn't mind this result. New Zealand, depending on whether this rain holds at the MCG, would not mind this result. They'd be fancying themselves 2 points against Afghanistan, but we'll wait for updates from the MCG. But Anil brings up the point, Sam, about that partnership between Brooke and David Malan. I think you're a great person to ask her. You batted pretty much everywhere in T20 cricket, but especially if you come in to that situation, I wonder if England missed a trick here by not keeping an eye on what the DLS target ought to be. It looked like that game didn't quite go anywhere, but for Moeen, they could have even been further behind.
Of course, it's very easy to sit here in hindsight and say that, of course, but in 2020 cricket, it's all about partnerships, and a lot of the time, if one guy is going and really playing well, and you're struggling a little bit, it's about actually handing it over, take the ego out of the game. But the problem was today on a tricky pitch, the conditions and the way the Irish bowlers were bowling. Neither Harry or Dawood could get away and get that momentum going. It was about building a partnership in that kind of key phase and then going through the gears. But it was just some days you have that day where you can't go through the gears and increase as you normally would. So, yeah, that's where the game kind of fell behind. It wasn't the fact that they weren't trying to take those options. Those kind of drop catches showed that the intent was there. But, yeah, just one of those days where the momentum just wasn't going for them.
I think that's a fair point Sam Billings makes. They did try to go for those big shots, but I guess, Niall, that only allows us to perhaps push more credit towards Ireland. They got early wickets. They didn't let their foot off the gas. They perhaps didn't allow England to get ahead of the game at all. Was that just the best bowling effort you've seen from them? And you said it's the best batting you've seen from Ireland in the first innings on our halftime show. Is that as good as they've been with the ball in the first 6 or so?
Yeah, I think the batting the first 15 overs was excellent. It was poor last 5. With the ball, it was total change. Josh Little, all tournament in Hobart, was banging the ball in back of a length. Sam mentioned in the pre-match show about him getting 5 wickets for the Manchester Originals. That was pretty much all short pitch bowling. Today, Josh went fuller. He swung the ball. He looked to swing the ball, which he hasn't tried to do, I would say, in the last 7, 8, 9 games for Ireland. So it was definitely a change in plan, change of tactic. Conditions obviously helped. They were excellent in their skills, and also, I must give some credit to the coaching staff because they take the spinner out, Simi Singh, who's a safe bet. He gives you a couple of decent overs. He can bat at the back end. And they bring in a young kid in Fionn Hand who has no experience, really, just his third T20 game, T20 international game. And he produced a beauty to get rid of Ben Stokes. So, Heinrich Milan is a new coach, but he's making daring changes. And sometimes in this tournament already, we've seen him make some really good calls. He pushed Lorcan Tucker up the top 3 about 2-3 months ago. 12 months ago, Lorcan Tucker didn't play against Namibia in Sharjah when Ireland got eliminated and embarrassed out of the tournament. Heinrich Milan and the coaching staff got to get him to 3. He's played well. So sometimes, as much as we give credit to players, we have to. I think the coaching staff will they'll enjoy a beverage tonight saying, lads, we've got another one right tonight. But I think Ireland were brilliant. All facets of the game. The only thing I say, the fielding, they've dropped 10 catches. And Anil will know as a head coach of a team, you cannot afford to drop catches, let alone 1 catch a match. Ireland are dropping 2 catches per game at the moment. Hasn't cost them tonight. I think if the game had gone another couple of overs, it may have cost them because I think England might have got over the line, but it wasn't to be, and Ireland have got points on the board.
I like how Niall O'Brien has transformed from that wicketkeeper who's really having a go to saying beverage when he has to say it, and then we're also looking at the bigger picture and saying, yeah, this was good, but let's make sure we take our catches. Niall, what would you be doing if this was 2007, if they would have upset England this way? You've been part of those. Tell me how the Irish celebrate these.
Long into the night. We wouldn't stop. Back in 2007, we had a very good coach. His name was Adrian Burrell, and he had an expression. You could tie the dogs loose. And that meant just go crazy for 24 hours. So if you're in Melbourne and you're walking the streets in the early hours, you got your shirt and tie on going to work, and you see a couple of stragglers strolling around looking a bit worse to wear, it's probably the likes of Paul Sterling and Balbirnie.
That is just brilliant, and it makes it so much sweeter that it's come against England for the Irish. Just last thing I'll talk about as far as the game goes. Liam Livingstone. This is one dilemma you must have had to face in your year at Punjab as well. Anil, with Liam, when do you send him in? Today they chose to send him in at 7.
I was a bit surprised because I haven't seen much of Harry Brook, especially at the international level. This is a World Cup and you're sort of looking up, not just looking at the conditions, you're also looking up. And the advantage of a day game is, I know it was towards the late evening, you could still make out whether it's going to rain. In a night game, it's very difficult to sort of know when it's going to rain. So I was a bit surprised that they didn't push Livingstone ahead of Harry Brook, especially when David Malan was not finding it easy out there. So yeah, I would have probably looked at Liam to come ahead of Harry Brook. And I think the role that he has in the English team is to sort of be the finisher along with Moeen Ali. But today you had to finish not just the 20 overs, but also have an eye on the DLS.
Let me get Sam's quick comment on that as well. I'm sure you're told to be flexible in these sorts of situations, Sam, but would you have ideally liked to see Liam Livingstone a bit earlier?
I think it's generally the conundrum that the English batting lineup have, the depth that they have. You've got Sam Curran coming in at 8, and I mean he was batting at 3 in the 100 and was one of our best batters. So it's sometimes you're spoilt for choice, and the form that Harry Brook's been in, especially in Pakistan, albeit in different conditions, different dimensions of ground. He is a superstar in the making. He really is, and yeah. So it's a bit of a tricky one. His strength has been in the past of manipulating and taking down spin in that recent series, especially in Pakistan, and so you can see why they sent him in earlier. When you get in a situation like that, got him Sam in the hut is a very difficult thing to say and to see. So yeah, spoiled for choice, I think.
All right, Niall, one last thing to you. I wonder what this would mean to this group of players. 2007 was perhaps the greatest day in Irish cricket when they beat Pakistan, qualified for the Super 8s. We saw 2011 with a similar bunch of players. You played with them, you were part of those teams. This has happened a fair while after. It's been a decade or so until we've had this sort of performance of note in an ICC event. So I just wonder where this stands for you in terms of glorious days for Irish cricket and what it means for this fairly new bunch of players.
Yeah, well, to go back 2007, Paul Sterling and George Dockrell were at school, and they got time off school to watch that game. So that game against Pakistan inspired the likes of George Dockrell and Paul Sterling. Fast forward a few years, 2011, Josh Little was 11 years of age. Gareth Delaney, I think, was 10 or 11. So all those guys were young kids watching Kevin get that brilliant century and watching Ireland beat England. So this game will inspire thousands of kids in Ireland, and the game in Ireland is on the up. The participation levels in Ireland is increasing year on year. Cricket is played in every single county in Ireland, whereas go back 10, 15 years, you could only find it in certain pockets of the country. So the game is growing, but everyone knows in Ireland, any win over England, that's going to be on the front page of the papers tomorrow, no doubt about it. I'm already banned. My publican, the landlady in my local pub in England here down the road, she's already messaged me, said you're banned from the pub. So this is huge.
Good luck trying to ban an Irishman from a pub. But yeah, this is a massive, massive day for Ireland cricket, and unfortunate for England. But if there was ever a team that deserves a bit of justice when it comes to fortune at an ICC event, Stephen Fleming, is that England?
No, we're not that vindictive. I was just laughing watching two wicket keepers chewing on their tongues, one trying to be humble and the other trying to be diplomatic. It's highly unusual.
Yeah, they're not truly giving us a taste of what they're going to do or what they would have done in these situations. But it's got a massive impact on where this group goes, Flem. We thought Australia, New Zealand could throw it open. Maybe then England, New Zealand would find a clear path to the semis. This result upsets a few things, doesn't it?
It does, and that's the beauty of World Cups. We talk about one-off performances and a little bit of luck along the line. Teams that win World Cups do have a little bit of luck. Ireland, who knows? They're playing really well. The track to me was a little bit inconsistent. That some balls from the seamers in particular were bouncing and looked difficult, but they played well enough. They've probably got a slice of luck there with the timing of the rain, and that could just be enough. Ireland have been competitive for a number of years. Listen to Niall there. I know there's a huge amount of respect in the cricket community to the direction that Ireland are travelling. So it's no longer a real surprise, and that's a great sign. New Zealand cricket had that for many years. Always the dark horse, and will pull off the old upset, and you get a little bit more consistent, and you become a contender. So if that's the path for Ireland, then all things are rosy. For England, it's a blip. It really puts them back in the pack, and you're right. I think Sam mentioned that game next Friday. What a ripper that's going to be. So, yeah, it's all on. Any slip-up, it can really be quite costly, that's for sure.
Well, it could further impact the group if the New Zealand-Afghanistan game that is to follow this one at the MCG is also without a result. But we'll wait for updates for that. I'll tell you what will happen, though. We'll have to wait a bit longer to know if Afghanistan, New Zealand is going to be called off or whether it's a rain affected game or not. That wasn't a luxury that the first game was allowed. The South Africa Zimbabwe game too, we waited significantly to see if they could get a result. I don't think that's a privilege that's afforded to the early game when these double headers take place at the same ground. I wonder if that in itself is a talking point here, Anil, because in some ways, I mean, teams don't get to choose whether they play in the afternoon or they play in the evening. But does it somewhere make it does it somewhere not make it a level playing field?
I think that's something that I think should have been discussed, and I'm sure it was discussed and taken a call. I'm a bit surprised that when it comes to teams playing in the World Cup, it should be the same, whether you're playing in the morning or whether you're playing in the afternoon or whether you're playing in the late evening. That time that you have to complete a game should be available, but perhaps because the reason being that both the games were at the same ground. That's one of the reasons. If the two games were in separate cities,
they could have easily
overlapped.
Yeah.
So maybe that's one of the reasons. So I'm not sure why it was the case, and that's something that will be a talking point.
I can't remember a lot of World Cups where there have been double headers at the same ground where this has come in. Maybe the rule was always in place. I could stand corrected as far as playing conditions go, but Sam Billings, we were discussing this before we went on air too. This is usually the case when it comes to double headers at the same ground from your experience at the 100?
Yeah, it's always been a contentious talking point, and one that I don't know the details and the intricacies, but as long as there's consistency, you can accept that. But it certainly does feel as if the time goes a lot quicker when it is a double header at the same ground. So we've had similar kind of situations during the 100.
Flem, anything to add to that? Whether this is an issue at all that's worth bringing up, do you sense teams would feel aggrieved by it, or is it just one of those things that everyone pretty much accepts?
Yeah, I note Sam struggled to answer that question because the Glamour Boys, the Invincibles, don't play the early game. So I'm not sure he's really experienced. It's a tough one for Sam to answer. I don't know. It doesn't seem quite right. The timings. I guess you hope that there are conditions that are true all the way through. The fact that there has been an interruption sort of highlights. It's almost like the stumps being knocked over the other day off the free hit is going to cause a little bit of discussion. But if the rules are there and it's clear, whilst it may not be completely even, if they're clear, then I think it's play on.
All right. Niall, you don't give a damn about all this, do you? Happy with the points?
Love the rain. Beautiful rain. Lovely Irish day.
I thought you were already at the pub now.
I would have been, but Slim was talking too much. Man. Let me go. Let me out of here.
Yes, that's what it will be.
You know what, Niall? I'm going to do just that. I don't know why you changed from the t-shirt to the formal shirt and whatnot. Is that the pub look? Is that how the Irish celebrate now?
No, I tell you why. Very big. I've got a photo shoot with my son who's 4 on Friday and my daughter who's 3 weeks old today. So we've got a photographer coming in. That's why I'm looking all glam.
All right, if you say so, Niall. All right, we leave it there. Thank you. Thank you very much to Niall O'Brien, who'll be celebrating and will be with us again tomorrow. Niall's with us for the early game tomorrow, South Africa, Bangladesh. So don't celebrate too hard, Niall. I hope you wake up in time. We have to give you a little alarm clock tonight.
I'll be good, mate. I'll be good.
All right, good man. Good man. Take care, Niall. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts. We'll hear more from former Ireland wicketkeeper Niall O'Brien. But what a great day for Irish cricketers. They've upset England. They've thrown this group wide open. Sam Billings, it's a thank you to you as well. But before I leave you, I must get, I think, a comment on England's batting. It lost 5 wickets on its way to 112 against Afghanistan. Today, the batting, to a degree, has let them down too, fair to say, or do you believe they also were a bit scrappy in the first half?
It was a combination. Today, everything kind of didn't go our way and didn't play well enough, as Mark Wood alluded to as he walked off the pitch at the halfway mark. But batting's all about rhythm, isn't it? Different conditions, different wicket, obviously, compared to Perth. So probably didn't quite adapt and kind of look at conditions as well as they would have liked today. And that cost them ultimately. But it's such a strong batting unit, as you go through the tournament. you want to peak towards the back end of that tournament, and it will come good. You just look down that line. It's too good not to.
England still to make the semis, Sam? All in their hands. Beat Australia, beat New Zealand, none of this matters.
Absolutely. Plenty to play for. Full crowd, hopefully, on Friday at the MCG against Australia. It doesn't get much bigger than that. So plenty to play for. And I'm looking forward to that Friday, let alone the players. So really looking forward to that now.
Yeah, well, I think the other good thing is that I think they've got the evening game then on against Australia on Friday. So they should be fine.
Don't encourage Flem anymore.
Yes. Go on, Sam.
No, don't encourage Flem anymore. Don't give him any more ammo.
All right. Flem's going to be with us for that game, and so are you. So you'll have plenty to share with each other on Friday. We look forward to Sam Billings' company then. And that is pretty much a wrap of that England-Ireland game that has thrown this group really wide open. Right now, New Zealand, Afghanistan, we're still waiting for some confirmation. Doesn't look good though. Covers are on, all the covers are on at the MCG. Flem, we'll just have a quick chat about this. I mean, not much that New Zealand can really do. This is another 2 points they would have expected to get against Afghanistan, even though we can't take anything for granted, as Ireland have shown. Daryl Mitchell apparently back, but does this, if they are to share the points today, does it at all make any difference perhaps after winning that first game they'd take it?
Well, sometimes the 1 point where it throws you out from all the other teams can be as good as a win, depending on how the rest of the tournament plays out. So one I don't think will be too bad. And keep in mind, I think Afghanistan is a tricky game for New Zealand. They've got the bowlers in particular that will test the New Zealand players. Yeah, they want to get out there, but the 1 point will just separate New Zealand. So it might still be okay and work in their favour, but you're still going to have to play very well all the way through. We've seen that. It is really the pool today is really hurt England. It's given Australia a boost. And you just get the feeling it's going to come right down to the wire. So it's a little bit hard to predict without going through all the permutations. And who's to say there's not more rain around? I think if you lost a couple of games to rain, it would be as good as another loss. So, yeah, there'll be some nervy teams around. They'll be looking downwards at pitch conditions and also upwards at the sky at some of the venues around Australia, that's for sure.
We'd also have to wait a while, as I mentioned, as we saw in the South Africa-Zimbabwe game at Hobart, in which case, if we are to see maybe a 5, 6, 7 over shootout, all of a sudden that too may work into Afghanistan's hands?
Oh, yes. I think the shorter the game, the Afghanistan's batting sort of suits that style, and the bowlers are adept to, like Flem mentioned, it's not going to be easy for New Zealand if it's a shortened game. We'll have to wait and see. Even 1 point each for New Zealand will mean that their game against England becomes very, very important. So they still have that option, but for someone like England now, they can't slip up. Whereas New Zealand, with the 2 points against Australia, even 1 point here will not be the end of the world for them.
The England don't look like the force we thought they'd be in these first 2 games, Anil. It's only Afghanistan and Ireland, with due respect, but those were the easier games out of the way now. Now they've got Australia, New Zealand, Sri Lanka back to back. We're not quite seeing England firing on all guns.
I don't know. I think it all depends on how good a start Josh Butler gets for England. I think it seems like that way. I mean, the last 2 innings that we have seen England bat, they've been very scratchy. And Butler hasn't scored, so maybe that's one of the reasons why they've been scratchy. With that kind of a lineup, you expect them to sort of come and boss the bowling attack. You just come and start hitting. Yeah, I know these are big grounds, but then the intent hasn't been there either. So that's been a bit worrying, if you're an England fan.
Yeah, Flem, you're with us for that England-Afghanistan game as well. They were benefited perhaps with where that game was at the Perth Stadium, but 2 games down, and albeit the 2 games they would have thought would be the easiest of the 5, we aren't quite seeing the team that we thought we would.
No, there's a couple of things for me, guys. One is that the gap between the have and have-nots is getting really close, which is a great thing. The other thing is about the format. The format of T20 really allows the skill sets to even up. So one or 2 players having a good day can really put pressure on any team in the world. And there's enough good players spread throughout all these teams to create some pressure. So if you show any nerves or you're just off, and England are just off a little bit, they're trying to find their rhythms, they're trying to find a pattern of play. We know the power is there, certainly in the in the batting. Mark Wood said they were just off a little bit with the bowling. So they're just searching a little bit. And if you just off a little bit, it can be enough to bite you. And that's what we saw towards the latter part of the batting innings with England, where they started through. And then again today, just trying to force the pace, but the method in which they were doing it just wasn't quite as effective as what we expect. Now, they can turn around real quick, and sometimes it's the bigger the challenge, the more you rise to it. And these games can be niggly for the other side because you get very nervy about losing. You start thinking about the outcome rather than just sinking into the game, which in other bigger games, you're playing the moment. So there's a whole lot of challenges that go on within every game that it's not always obvious, but can just be as difficult and as challenging for a player as playing at team rank 1 versus team rank 2. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Billings made that point as well, right? It wasn't a full MCG today, not a lot of people. It's a weekday afternoon game. If we see England v Australia in a couple of days, packed house, we might just see the best of England. Ireland, on the other hand, have been here a while now. This was their 5th game in 12 days, so they've had a lot of cricket. They were nicely ready and warmed up for opposition that are just about getting their feet in, as the T20 World Cup is still in its very early days. Teams are only just starting their second games literally today. We'll have to wait for a delayed toss, but it looks a bit better from the pictures I'm getting from the MCG. Umbrellas are at least off, umpires are inspecting, so the site will have you covered for the latest. Just one bit of news from the New Zealand camp. Gary Stead said at the eve of this game that they're expecting Daryl Mitchell back. He's been training over the last couple of days. Flem, if he does return, big player, walks straight in for Mark Chapman, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I would assume so. He is a big player, but he's been out of the game. So it's a way of introducing him at the early stage of the tournament. What can we expect? Well, he may hit the ground running, but when you've had a finger injury as a batter, you haven't got the volume that you often need or have got in the past to prepare. So it'd be interesting to see how he slides in. I would assume it's at number 5. That would be the obvious selection now. But yeah, there will be a bit of attention. If they can get him up to speed, he will be a good asset going forward. He's been one of New Zealand's standout players in the last 18 to 12 to 18 months. So it will make the team stronger. Chapman's done well, but I think Mitchell adds quite a steely determination to that lineup, which is what will be during.
He was quite a revelation, Flem, last World Cup, batting at the top of the order. I don't know what he's been doing in between these 2 World Cups, but he obviously has to find a place back in the middle with Finn Allen and Devon Conway. Easy to do that? I thought Mitchell that top spot was his for what it was worth, but it doesn't seem to be that way anymore.
No, maybe they might use him as a floater. If Finn Allen gets out and you've got the Conway-Williamson combo, they might have Mitchell ready to go. So if Finn Allen gets out early, Mitchell might go in early as a pinch hitter. That would be something certainly you hope they were discussing in the coaching ranks, looking at that. But I think to get him started, get him back into competition, I think 5's probably pretty good. And given what Finn Allen has done with his opportunity, it'd be very hard to change it now.
If we do get a biggish or longish sort of game, Anil, I think Ireland have shown teams like Afghanistan what they need to do to make a contest out of it, especially when they're batting.
Yes, I think what Ireland did really well was batted the first 10 overs under their control. They were way ahead, in fact, and that's one of the reasons why they could finish with 157. So Afghanistan need to also understand that it's not, the power play is important. Yes, they go all out in the power play, but then it's important to put up a good score. And we know Afghanistan, if they put up a good score, they have good enough bowlers to put pressure on any side. And if they can do that, then they have a great chance here to beat New Zealand. And New Zealand will be wary of Afghanistan, especially the bowling attack.
All right, that's it from us for now. Big thank you to Anil Kumble and Stephen Fleming, as well as Niall O'Brien and Sam Billings, who helped us wrap that thrilling Ireland-England game. It's an awesome result, especially for Ireland, and even so for the uncertainty that it throws upon this group going forward in the ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2022. We'll be back after we have an innings in that New Zealand-Afghanistan game. Let's hope we do have some sort of play. Be ashamed to lose 2 games to weather on the same day. At least we got a result in the first one. We don't want another South Africa-Zimbabwe type situation. We at least want some cricket, even if it is a 6, 7, 8 over shootout. Join us then on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket Info T20 Timeout.